of the first female combat veterans elected to Congress, one of our presidential candidates, Hawaii National Guard Major Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi, come on up.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning. Aloha. Thank you so much to my friend and my former colleague, Supervisor Janice Hahn, for her spirit of service and the leadership that she has shown to make this event happen today. Many hands go into pulling these kinds of things together. I'm wondering if we can give everybody a round of applause that's worked so hard to make this possible. It is such a beautiful day, and it is a beautiful thing that every year on November 11th, in small towns and in big cities all across our country, we have Americans of all ages gathering together to honor and to thank the men and women throughout history who have worn the cloth of this country. Now, this is not a day just for lip service or platitudes. It's a day to truly honor that service, the freedoms and liberties enshrined in our Constitution and guaranteed every single one of us as Americans are what all of us as service members and veterans have sworn to uphold, have promised to support and defend, even if it requires making the ultimate sacrifice to do so. Acta non verba. Actions, not words. Our servicemen and women across generations embody truly what it means to take action, to put service above self, to put the well-being of the American people and our country above all else. Now, at a time when we have too many leaders who are looking out for their own selfish interests or power or fame or profits, let this day, this Veterans Day, be that shining example of what service really means for the leaders of our country to follow. For me, like so many Americans, the terrorist attack on 9/11 completely changed my life. It's what motivated my decision to enlist in the military, to go after and to defeat and destroy the evil that visited us on that day. I served in Iraq on my first deployment in 2005. We were based in a camp about 40 miles north of Baghdad, and I served in a field medical unit where the very first task that I had every day was to go through a list, name by name, of every American service member who had been injured or hurt in the previous 24 hours. It was heart-wrenching every day because I knew that those were not just their names were not just words on a page, that these were my brothers and sisters, and that behind every single one of them, waiting anxiously at home, were moms and dads, husbands and wives, children, brothers and sisters. So many never got to make that trip home, never got to say that final goodbye, leaving their families with a sense of emptiness that would never be filled. We will never forget our brothers and sisters. For our unit, at the end of our deployment, when we came home, we landed on the tarmac, Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii. We walked off that plane to the sweetest trade wind breezes I had ever felt. We stood in that formation that we had been looking forward to for so long, hundreds of us standing shoulder to shoulder, listening to the final speech from our commanding officer, waiting for that most important word, dismissed. We were met by our families there who held welcome home signs and who were cheering for us as we came home. And, you know, I ran straight to my family, was met first with a hug from my dad. I'd never seen my dad cry before, ever in my life. And as I hugged him, I felt him sobbing, with tears of relief. My mom then joined in the hug, and for me in that moment, that was really when I began to realize the great sacrifice that military families, that our loved ones make while we're gone. You know, because while we're deployed, we're focused on our mission. We're focused on getting the job done, and thank God it's our families who are at home holding down the fort. But it is our families who lay awake at night, fearing that knock on the door may come. As I was going through this task every day while I was deployed and thinking about those who paid the price for these wars, I often wondered how many of our politicians who make this decision also laid awake at night, worrying about our brothers and sisters in uniform. My guess was not that many. Those of us who've been deployed, we're all too familiar with the quick stops in country that politicians make. They come in, touch down for a few hours, bring troops together for a quick photo op, and then go home. We're tired of these self-serving politicians, tired of those who are unwilling to sacrifice their own lives for our freedom and our safety, but are all too willing to sacrifice the lives of our men and women in uniform. Politicians who send us into harm's way to be the world's police, to topple dictators who we don't like, to fight in unnecessary wars that actually undermine our national security, squandering taxpayer dollars, destroying entire countries, and then turning their backs on us when we come home. Tired of politicians who are telling us that in order for our brothers and sisters in uniform right now, who are suffering and dying from toxic burn pit exposure, before they can get the care they need, that we've got to provide proof of that mixing pot of trash and chemical ash that we inhaled every single day of our multiple deployments. Tired of politicians who shake their heads at this unbearable statistic of veterans who survive combat only to come home and lose the battle, taking their own lives while failing to provide the necessary resources to prevent this tragedy from ever occurring in the first place. Tired of politicians who bemoan the opioid epidemic that's destroying the lives of veterans and Americans all across this country, and yet refuse to allow the VA to prescribe alternatives like medicinal marijuana as a safe alternative to these highly addictive drugs. Our veterans, our men and women in uniform deserve better. Actions, not words. For me, it's been over 16 years since I first enlisted, shipped off to basic combat training during the hot summer to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Yeah, all right, you know what I'm talking about. Never forget. I'm still serving as a major today, and I tell you, I am so grateful to have the opportunity, the privilege to be able to serve alongside so many great patriots. The rare few, those who are willing to sacrifice life and limb to protect the safety, security, and freedom of all Americans. Great patriots who deserve respect and honor and the thanks of our grateful nation. Patriots who deserve leaders in Congress and a commander-in-chief truly grounded in the spirit of selfless service, inspired by the examples of those willing to give up their own safety and well-being for the well-being of our nation. They deserve a commander-in-chief that should be no less of a patriot and no less courageous than our men and women in uniform and truly understanding the cost of war. Our troops and veterans deserve a commander-in-chief who will have the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to further the cause of peace and national security, exhausting all avenues of diplomacy before considering military action. We deserve a commander-in-chief who will truly honor our men and women in uniform by only sending them on missions worthy of their great sacrifice. A commander-in-chief who will support and defend the Constitution including Article 1 that says Congress has the responsibility to decide whether or not to declare war. Actions, not words. So on this day and every day, let us all pledge as Americans, as patriots, as those who love our country, to honor our men and women in uniform by making sure that they are always taken care of and that we leave no veteran behind. Let us stand together as Americans, united by the freedoms and principles in our Constitution that serve as the bedrock for our nation, honoring the sacrifices of our nation's sons and daughters by discarding the failures of the past and marching ahead towards a future of peace. I want to close with a quote from President Abraham Lincoln, delivered during his second inaugural address, when he said, "With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work that we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan, and to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace amongst ourselves and with all nations." Thank you for being here and choosing to spend your time today to honor those who have served. Aloha.
Thank you. Thank you, Major Gabbard. And I wanted to present to you an American flag that just this morning was flying over the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which I know you helped fight the fight to keep it the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum.
Thank you, guys. That was great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Second privilege here, and I know when she was talking about self-serving politicians, she didn't mean me.
Of course not. Of course not.
Also, I know didn't mean my colleague on the County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas has joined us. Please give him a round of applause. Mark served with me on the Los Angeles